Sorry about that. Technology times. So everyone joined in? Yeah? Okay. So sorry about that. I mean, I don't know what happened to my computer stopped working. Um, so for risk sharing, we were talking about risk sharing, right? If I look at conventional loan, if I lend someone $100, right, to give me $10 after 6 months, right? If he makes loss or if he makes $1,000 from it, yeah, I'm getting 10. Now, from a perspective, I'm making money and I'm only getting, no matter how much money he makes, I'm getting $10. From that, even if it's a loss, I don't really care, right? I need my 110 back. Or I can go to the court or whatever. Like from an Islamic perspective, we do share 50, for example. $100, he makes no profit, right? Loss, for example. Then I take the hit. We say, okay, now we entered into a partnership. Fair enough. If there's no negligence on your part, then I have to take the hit. But on the flip side, if $100 profit, suppose if he makes $10 profit, then according to 50-50 sharing ratio, I get $5, he gets $5. If he makes $100, $50, and he gets $50. And if he makes $1,000, that's $500, and he gets $500. Rewards are also increased, but for that I have to take the risk, right? So from this perspective, that makes sense. Conventional, what it is you make loss, I don't really care. I need my money back. If you make certain profits, like for example $1,000 over $100, still I can't ask you to give me the money. I need my interest. So on Islamic side, there's more justice towards it, right? You're sharing the risks and the rewards, and your social justice comes in as well. So just for understanding perspective, there are four schools of thought when it comes to Islamic transactions. So it's Sunni school of thought, Hanafi, Shafi, Hanbali, and Maliki. Now more towards Asia, the subcontinent, Pakistan, India, even Asian states, they follow the Hanafi madhab. She is mostly Malaysia, Indonesia. There's African countries, and even Oman to an extent is Shafi. Hanbali is more the Middle East. Bahrain, all of that is more of a Hanbali. Maliki is African countries. Your Egypt and all of that. Egypt and also the other African countries, Ghana, Senegal, these Nigeria, all of the Muslims there, they follow the Maliki madhab. Now it's important to note here that 80 to 90% of madhabs are equal thing. Now that's a misperception that he says this, he says this. No, 9%, all of these great leaders were on 90 to even 95% were on agreement. They weren't fighting with each other for like, no, they'll be different, they should be different, they should be different. They had very little, which was a very little difference of opinion, and was done very respectfully. Aggressive towards each other. They weren't disrespectful to each other. They were very respectful that we agree, and he's more learned than us. And some scholars have said that this, for example, Imam Abu Hanifa is very much more learned than us, and we agree with him and stuff like that. So there was very much respect between the scholars. But obviously, because there's interpretation, and for interpretation you have to use your intellect to argue, but both can have different perspectives, right? So they have their own interpretation. They use their own intelligence and interpretation for different issues of fiqh. So just to let you know from so now again we'll run through the revision. Why don't you guys take a break? Well, we started late, so we'll talk about a break later. The principles of Islamic contract, right? And Brother Al Fatih or Dr. Asad did cover this, but mutual consent. So you force someone into getting into a contract with them. Prohibition of riba. I know there were some interesting questions on riba. So riba, the two types of riba al-fadl, riba al-nasiya. Prohibition, uncertainty, uncertainty, excessive uncertainty, even speculation. That's not allowed. Prohibition, which is taking, to an extent, again, where speculation comes in and things like that. So these are just four general principles of Islamic contracts. I'm not going into detail because I'm assuming you guys have done this, right? Refresher or recap. Classic Islamic financial contracts. Again, I'm sure you guys have done it, but just to they're partnership models, partnership-based contracts, they're exchange-based contracts, right? Charitable contracts and security contracts. Now, what are your part-based contracts? You got that? Musharaka, me, and for example, another person go into a business. We give both some amount of money, right? Profit sharing ratio is agreed upon, and profit ratio can be anything. For example, there's a $200 business we set up. I give $190 and the other person gives $10. Now, if we agree and if all of these rules of Islamic contracts are met, then if I'm giving $190, I can agree that I'll only get 10% of the profit, and the remaining 90% of the profit is shared to the person who's just giving $10 to the company. But again, obviously, if there is mutual agreement, right? Is to be shared according to the capital percentage. For example, if there's a $100 business, I put $90, he's put $10. If $10 loss, then loss 90% will go to me. 10% loss will go to the person who's put in $10. You can share that because you're taking more profit, you take more of the loss. That's not allowed unless there is negligence on the party. So there's a person who was negligence means that it's a mistake, knowing or unknowingly, was a fraud or whatever. If there's negligence, then all the profit goes to, all the loss is attributed to the person or the party who is negligent, right? Quickly recap. Profit according to any ratio, no matter how much initial capital the party has given. Loss are only attributable in accordance to the capital ratio, the ratio of capital the person or the party has put in, right? Negligence on the part of who, then all the loss is borne by that party. So the Mudaraba is slightly different. In Mudaraba, you have the capital provider, who is the Rabbul Man, and then you have the entrepreneur, the business, who is the Mudarib, right? And profiting ratios can be an agreement between both the parties. That can be 50, 70, or whatever. Again, it should be in accordance to mutual consent. You can force the other party to take 10% of the profit, and the rest of the 90% is taken by the person who's giving in the money, right? Profit ratio can be according to the mutually decided percentage rate. However, all of this is borne by the person who gives in the money, unless there is negligence on the part of the Mudarib business owner. So, for example, I go to Mudaraba partnership with someone else, with another partner, and with money, I say $100, and go invest only in equities of energy companies, right? But he then invests in IT stocks. So that's negligence. That's against the contract. If there's a loss, then bear all the loss. He can't put the loss on me because him to do this, but he this, and because loss is not attributable to the Rabbul Man. That's negligence. Right? Murabaha. Murabaha, a sale contract, a cost plus markup, and the markup, the amount of profit being charged on top of the cost is or is yeah is disclosed to the buyer. When it comes to Murabaha, there can be three types of payments. One is upfront. You buy something from the market, you put your markup on it and sell it to a person, and the person pays you 100% upfront cash. Connection is not good. Hear me? I can use my headphones if you cannot hear me, or should I talk slow? See me. Is this better? Can anyone else hear me? You know, or is it just one or two previous seconds? It was better before. But when you make connection isn't clear, was it the video or was it like too far from the speaker? I can more forward. Was it voice or was it the video or was it the everything? Okay. So okay. So would I speak slower? Sometimes I get excited about Islamic finance, so I keep on talking a lot. So we were about Murabaha. So Murabaha is markup, right? Now, from a payment perspective, there can be three aspects. One is, I take something from the market, put upon it, and sell it to the person, and he pays me upfront cash 100%. You know, the second can be, I put my markup, I sell it to the person, and the person says, I'll pay you back in 6 months. Yeah, second option. Option is that I sell it to the person and he says, I will pay you. So, for example, if this is $100, I give him this. He says, I will pay you $10 each month for the next 10 months. Right? There are three payment methodologies: upfront cash, 100% deferred, or periodic payments. This when we go into the Sukuks, why do we, if it's staggered payments? What's the difference between this and Ijara, right? In Ijara you pay up, rentals or something, and then after the end of that period you own the asset. And now, interesting, right? Have you guys done it? Have you guys done? Did you guys go what the difference between a Murabah and Ijara is from risk management perspective, or from tip and all that perspective? Responsibility different, yes. So, and also the payment option. I'll tell you what is it, and that's when we go into the Ijara Sukuk. We'll discuss why people prefer Ijara than compared to Murabah. Ijara is a rental, yeah, contract. You take asset from someone and pay them for use of that asset. Paying rent to use that asset. Now, if I'm renting out a apartment to someone, I say that you pay me $500 every month, and we get into a contract. Now, and this is our contract, okay? This is how he pays me rental. He uses the asset, which is an apartment. Now, maybe after 6 months, can I rent? If agreed, if it agreed, look, I to tell him, look, that was subsidizing, and it happened in Bahrain as well, by the way. So the government is subsidizing something, was subsidizing electricity, the water, everything. But now the subsidy is gone, so now my expenses have gone up, so I have to raise the rent. And if parties agree, then it can be done. Yeah. So the Najara asset can fluctuate, benchmarked even to the LIBOR interbank offering rate. So it can fluctuate, similar. It can mimic, your conventional bond, which is linked to the LIBOR or whatever. However, if this phone to someone, right, for $10, and he says, okay, I'll pay you $10 every month, and months, months, no, by the way, $12 from now on. No, because the price has already been agreed. Your price. Now he owns the asset, and the owner lies with the person, the lessee, the lessor, who owns the end. But in a transaction, once the transaction is agreed, the asset goes to the buyer. They cannot now change the price. The price has been agreed. He sold the asset and just receiving the payment. So that's the major difference between a murabaha and a nijara. Ownership of the asset and all risks associated with the asset remain who owns it, the seller, till the end. Right? On the flip, in a nijara, your prices can change as well. You can rent it because it's a rental agreement, right? So you use the rent. Murabaha, from the first day, you decide price, ownership goes to the other party, and that's it, khalas. As in, your prices are agreed upon. You cannot change the price. So that's the main difference between when it comes to. So when you structure products, Islamic products, you have to these minute details. That what are the risk associations? Sometimes you don't want to take the risk of the asset, right? So you can do a murabaha contract, for example, maybe. Sometimes you want to keep the asset in your holding, or you don't want that the party might not be trustworthy, so you don't want that the asset goes into their ownership. When it comes to product structuring, you have to assess. Right. Salam is in its classic sense was used in Asher, even before the Prophet, peace be upon him. And the idea was that you had farmers who might, but who did not have the initial capital to start work on the land. So what you did, you paid them advance upfront, 100% upfront, and you said, okay, after 6 months, when you get the produce, when your field starts to give fruit, I will take all of the fruit. Like, this is the estimated amount. All this fruit will belong to me. Right? This kind of makes sense as well, right? Because when you get into a salam contract, you can negotiate a lower price. It works well for both the farmer and businessman, right? So, for example, the businessman says that wheat aim to be $10 per kg in 6 months, right? So, and this is just an example, $10 per kg for say in 6 months, right? And the businessman goes to the farmer and says, pay you $8 per kg for deliver this amount of wheat to me, this field, in the next 6 months. So you have negotiated a lower price, but you've taken a risk on it as well. Salam, obviously, you're taking a risk. And emotional finance, two things: the higher the risk, the higher return you have to give. It's one of those basic finance graphs which we do, which is the higher the risk, the higher the return, right? So the businessman is taking a risk, number one. Number two, on the flip, farmer has already locked in a potential buyer. After 6 months, you have a produce, You go to the market, some of your produce is lost because you can't find a buyer. Farmer has a buyer, so he's not worried about that aspect as well, and he's got his advance payment. So the Salam contract, if negotiated properly and if everything is done properly, works well for the producer and the buyer. Commodities now, they've been very interesting structures, Salam structures. I mean, there was that Salam on. Yeah, sorry, there's a question. Can the lessor change the price in Ijara with yes, the price if mutually agreed upon, it can change. Now, to Sukuk, right, and all of this, what you do is you just, instead of, change the price and going to all, suppose you have 1,000 Sukuk holders, you can't just negotiate with the price you want, right? What you do is just put that the price will be LIBOR plus 2%, or 200 basis points or something like that. So it automatically fluctuates. Rather than just after 6 months you're renegotiating the price. The way you or price the contract is LIBOR, or I don't know what it is in Kazakhstan. What is it called? The benchmark rate. KIBOR. Even in Pakistan, it's called KIBOR. Karachi Interbank Offering Rate. Okay, so so it depends on how it's priced, but yes, it can. Now that question would lead to another question, which will be that when benchmark to an interest bearing benchmark, is it Sharia compliant? Does it make it haram? Like if you're marking something to a interest benchmark, is it haram? And the answer is no. There's a reason for it. Now, if Islam, you can price your product however you can, and if it's mutually agreed upon. Is it perfect? No, it's not. That benchmark is not perfect, and you should, in Islamic finance, should have its own benchmark as well. Having said that, that does not make it haram. Islamic finance, you can, or in Islam, or Islamic contracts, if parties were getting into a contract, mutually agree on a price, being forced into it without, and if following all the ethics of a contract, then it is allowed. Number one. Two, for example, if I go to wherever and there's rules, right, and one is halal, right, and the not halal. It doesn't give you halal meat, right? For halal McDonald's to be priced differently compared to non-halal McDonald's? No, because it's the same, and the production cost would more or less be the same, right? Yes, both can, if you can mutually agree on the change in price. There's a question that what is an ijara? Yes, what an ijara is, but even if there's no, say for example, I gave you an example of the rent of this is how it answers that. And why is an option for the customer to acquire the ownership of the? Yeah, I mean, even if it's at the end, you can buy the asset if both parties agree. Like I said, when it's to financial contracts, right? You price or based, so you price it on LIBOR plus whatever rate, that you do it. That's how it fluctuates. You don't say, okay, you pay me 6% and then after that you go to 8%. That's obviously a bit tricky, but it can be done if both parties agree on it mutually. It can be done because rental agreement, and then comes the sale contract, right? So it can be done if both parties agree on it. Like I said, it's benched or it's priced according to LIBOR plus whatever XYZ, right? So that's can be done. Ijara payments can fluctuate. Where was I? The example, the McDonald's example. So it doesn't make sense for both of them to be priced differently, right? And no one speak of it as being haram if it's priced differently from a Big Mac, which is priced in another way, right? So just the price benchmark can be whatever, you know. So long as it's mutually agreed upon, it can be whatever is agreed upon by the parties. So salam, and now go on to istisna. Contractual, istisna is more of a manufacturing contract. And you can pay it up in stages. The payment can be in stages, upfront, or at the end. Quickly, because I think break this takes like the when time. When do you break? Because Dr. Asad told me that you guys want to prayer break in 20 minutes. Okay. Got it. Yeah, so we were good in 20 minutes. It's 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock will be okay. Got it. Got it. 2ish. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Hiba is a gift. Is a gift. Now, hiba is usually given on deposit contracts, right? When deposit contracts, especially, are on wadiya contracts. And I'll come back to hiba after I explain the wadiya. So wadiya is a safekeeping contract where you give structured, and I'll explain how deposit is structured. Now, there are two ways. What you do, keep your money with the bank, right? And that is someone trying to call me? Okay, so you take my money, you keep it, whatever reason you want, but at the end, and whatever happens, I want the initial amount I put in, maybe a year, 2 years, whatever. I would want my initial amount, initial capital, principal, to be safe, right? So you can use it for its investment purposes or whatever, right? But guarantees that the original principal, for example, the $100, will be safe. No matter what happens, if the bank invests the $100 and it's a loss in the market, it has to guarantee that $100 to depositor. So it's a contract, and the bank or the person who's safekeeping is allowed to use the asset, or in case money, but he has to guarantee the safety of the initial asset or the principal amount. Now, returning the money, right? The person doesn't want his money like in a year. He just says, keep my money for now. The bank hiba, a gift, some as as a form of goodwill. The days of Prophet as well. What happened was, if the Prophet said, if someone lends you money, right? Obviously, you can't charge what do you call it? But when you return it in a beautiful manner, in terms of ethics, in a beautiful manner. Maybe you can give a little bit of a gift of something like that. So taking that, what value is, they share what the money they make from investment the person has put in, right? However, what Sharia non-compliant is, in contract it says that I give this percentage hiba every month, every year, that make it interest, right? Because obviously, right, if you say that, you keep money with me, and after every 1 year or every 6 months, I'll give you the percentage as hiba, that will make it riba, not hiba, that will make it riba. But if actually mentioned, then banks when it comes to wadiya deposits, they periodically share some amount as a hiba, right? They give as a benchmark. Now, Now it's become a bit clever is they give historical performance. Go to open account, with your deposit account, they give you, they won't say that we do this in the future, we'll give you the hiba in the future. We don't promise that. They don't mention that in the contract. But what they do, historical performance of the workout. And obviously that historical performance is kind of linked to the interest rate, right? They're equal to the interest rate they give. For example, if a company's interest rate is $10, so you every year the bank is giving hiba as 10%. Right? So now they get a bit clever. Some practice I don't agree with, but that's what the industry practice sometimes is. Right? It's not perfect, but it's getting there. Industry started off in 2000, 2001, and where it is in 10 years, 20 years, it's, alhamdulillah, it's done exceptionally well. Right? Going forward, it's getting better as well. But I think what the practice is, some practices, obviously, I don't agree with. That's it. Again, this can come into a sortable contract as well, but this is most of a gap contract where it's a third party becomes free for payment of debt unpaid by the person. So what he says is that if he doesn't pay, if XYZ doesn't pay, I'll pay on his behalf. It's a guarantee contract. The degree of the surety should be known. Obviously, like any Islamic finance contract, the surety should be known. There should be no unknowns per se. The contract should be very, very clear. Right? The guarantee contract given to the creditor that the debtor will pay the debt or any other liability. Whereas a collateral, again, like your conventional, you take collateral, you give some funding or something, and you give a collateral. So you're taking a property as a security against a debt. You give a jar financing or something, so you say that we can put this as collateral as well. What means promise? So it's what means promise. It's non-binding. Historically, or in a classical sense, it's non-binding in the sense in courts. Even currently, it's non-binding, but from an Islamic perspective, Islamic finance perspective, when someone gives a wa'd, they are expected to to follow it, right? And it especially takes place in structuring your undertaking when you give your undertaking and stuff like that. Your purchase undertaking, your sale undertaking, that's where it's used mostly. Some of the and a recap of the contracts. I'm sure you've done it before as well. So when it comes to Islamic banks, an Islamic bank, what is the function or the role of an Islamic bank? Right? It's an investment management, as a double mal, yeah, finances. You guarantee LCs, money transfers and stuff like that. So you get your financial services as well. Financing and businesses through ijaras, for example, even without musharikas, you can do financing through that as well. And then usual services as well. So provide al-hasan, zakat, where applicable, because every Islamic bank has to pay some sort of zakat. So it has some social aspect to it as well. So not like a conventional bank. No, so for a conventional bank, it's just mostly giving out loans and being debt, right? So debt based. In Islamic finance, it's slightly different, right? It might look same from the outside, but when you actually get on the inside, you've got investment management services, you've got financing assets, and businesses, and you've got services as well, apart from financial services, right? It's different. It works, if not quite different from a conventional bank. Bankers also expect to know the businesses they invest in fairly, a bit more better than their conventional counterparts, because you're doing a partnership, right? Because obviously when you're doing a partnership, there's higher risk, right? Rather than just giving an interest-bearing loan. So when you're in a partnership where risks and rewards are shared, you're expected Islamic bankers to know the business you're getting into much better than your conventional counterparts. understand the business, understand the global dynamics. So a growing banker would um, uh, do his research, his or her research, much better than a conventional banker, and B, uh, would be expected to know more about the business they're getting into. So there's models when it comes to Islamic banking, right? There are just three types of models that are followed, right? The window model, so you have a window which gives Islamic products, right? Model, so a conventional bank offers, so rebrand, not rebrand, but brands self part of its business as Islamic, and you have branches which are conventional, only conventional products, and you have other branches which are only Islamic. Standard Chartered, Sadiq, HSBC, Amana, right? So HSBC is a conventional bank, and they have their branches, but they also HSBC Amana branches in Malaysia. If you go Standard Chartered, Sadiq, if you go to Pakistan in the Middle East, they have Chartered branches, but there are also Standard Chartered Sadiq branches as well. And standalone subsidiary or full-fledged Islamic bank. A separate legal entity. For example, you've got Dubai Islamic Bank, you've got Bahrain Islamic Bank, Mizan Bank. These banks are standalone legal entities of Islamic Bank. These three banking models of how Islamic banks are pushed to the market or to the consumer. You can have your model, your branch model, or your standalone Islamic bank. Done this, but in terms of Islamic banking contract relationship, when it comes to a conventional bank, you have their borrower relationship, and these are all mostly interest-based deposits. From an Islamic perspective, right, we've got financier, capital provider, which is obviously a mudaraba. You've got your custody of a deposit, got your profit-sharing investment accounts, so investment profit sharing. Financing side. Sorry, this. You guys want to? Oh, what happened? Okay. All right. Okay. Activity in Astana. Guys, are you wanting a break? Let's see. Okay, let's take a break in like 5-10 minutes. All right. And then before we go on to the next section, modification of Islamic contracts, we'll take a break. All right. Right? We still, right? Are you guys? Yeah, all right. All right. Cool. All right. From a financial side, again, in a conventional bank, it's just interest-based loans. You've got your lending and borrowing. But if you, from an economic perspective, you've got your asset financing. Finance an asset through Ijara, Salam, Istisna, depending on what asset, what kind of business you're getting into. And then your equity financing, or profit sharing, which is again a musharaka or a mudarba. You partnership with another business, right? So to understand of Islamic banking, has this slide been done before by Al-Fatih? Was this covered before? Because let me save you time. Okay. No. So I have Islamic banking and finance, right? If you got an I'm for Islamic financial institution, right? Islamic institutions have regulations or can have a framework which is more robust than a conventional bank, right? So I say that. So in a financial institution, you have to abide by the regulators. Now they also say Basel III is in some countries. Basel III is applicable. Your IFRS 9 and all of that. So from a conventional perspective and the regulatory perspective, you abide by those. And then you have Islamic infrastructure, Islamic finance infrastructure institutions such as, for example, AIFC, the Islamic Financial Services Board, which is based in Malaysia. This covers your capital adequacy standards, your risk management standards, the accounting and auditing organization for Islamic financial institutions, um, which is based as a sister institute for us. It has your Sharia standards, your accounting and auditing standards, right? Your International Islamic Liquidity Management Center, AILM, company. This again helps having that short-term liquidity. This offers products or short-term products for this is based in Malaysia, so this is mostly Malaysian banks leverage off this, but this is counter that short-term liquidity. In Bahrain, we have the central bank, and I do the Salam Sukuk, which is in the short-term liquidity requirements of Islamic banks, right? You have AIBF, the Bahrain Institute of Islamic Finance, the first Islamic finance, provider, which was set up in 1997. Actually, the first course we did was in 1992, by the way. So this is by the Central Bank of Bahrain. We're part of the training arm of the Central Bank of Bahrain, and we have, we work with FSB, IOFI, and all of that. AIFC, obviously, as well. The whole idea is to promote Islamic finance, really. We've got, which is the training of the IDB. So it doesn't do training as such. IRTI does. IRTI stands for the Islamic Research and Training Institute, right? I don't think IRTI does a lot of training, but it sponsors a lot of events and conferences, and it's more towards the academic side. The difference between BIBF and IRTI is BIBF we try to tackle the industry practices. IRTI is more on a research side, and it's done great research, but more towards the research side, academia side. LMC, the Liquidity Management Center, again, it's a market maker for Islamic secondary market instruments, so where you can trade your sukuks, where you can go and sell sukuks and stuff, as a secondary market instrument. IRA International Islamic Rating Agency, based in Bahrain. Again, it helps rate Islamic banks. So it's not just your sovereign rating or your what you call those credits, but also from an Islamic perspective. How big is this financial institution or bank, right? So IRA does great work. And then you have AIFM, the International Islamic Financial Market. This is also based in Bahrain. This actually, what they're trying to do is they're trying to standardize your Islamic contracts. Your asset everything, so that if you go with an Islamic bank in Pakistan, in Malaysia, in Bahrain, or in Kuwait, the whole procedure and contract should be standardized, right? Trade with someone in America, and he says, okay, I'd like to do something with an Islamic bank, and he goes to Kuwait, and he sees something which is completely different, and then he goes here, he sees something completely different. He says, he or she, or whatever the institute gets that they don't have their act look nice, right? So AFM is trying to do, at least it's trying to standardize the contracts. Your Tawara contracts, and they also other things, but one of the most important things in my perspective is it's standardized Islamic contracts, and that's what's needed if we need to best. So the thing is, third step of Islamic. So if you look at the evolution of Islamic finance or Islamic banking, in the 70s, it was, can there be something called an Islamic bank, right? Because if you look at the 70s, especially in the West, or even in the GCC and all of that, all you have are conventional banks, right? And of something called Islamic, because a bank was an interest-bearing institution, right? There could be something an Islamic bank, because that's like something saying, can there be alcohol, right? Because alcohol is haram. So the Islamic bank in itself, or set up an Islamic bank, how to get halal, the services halal, was a big achievement if you look at it, right? So the first, can there be an Islamic bank, right? So in the 70s, 80s, Dubai Islamic, Bahrain Islamic, Abu Dhabi Islamic. So these banks were set up. The second, can you sustain banks, right? Can there be customers to these banks? Will there be people interested in us, right? especially in the early 2000s, it really picked up, right? You could tell that, okay, Islamic banking is uh, picking up, right? Um, then, in fact, in the late 90s to the early 2000s, the third uh, inflection, the evolution was that, okay, you had people who were going, they were the very religious-minded people, and would go for Islamic banking anyway. Islamic banking to other customers, who are looking at banking services. Islamic banking as a viable bank or viable financial service, rather than someone just saying, okay, you're saying that this is that's why come to an Islamic bank. So that can you actually do beyond that? Go beyond that. That's saying, okay, have these banks, but what I'm offering to you make from a business perspective, makes sense from an ethical perspective, right? And there, where we now is how we export, or how can we give or present Islamic finance as a viable alternative to the financial system, the conventional system in the West. I mean, you've got your 2008 financial crisis, then you've got your Bitcoin bubbles, and you've got, your busts and booms. Can you address those issues? And you've got your unethical finance as well, right? In America, people who had invested all their things for retirement being wiped out, and no one, even the government doesn't care really. No one, gave them money back. They bailed out the banks, so they gave to the banks, but no one cared about the people who lost their savings, who retirement funds, right? So there's unethical finance, the unethical aspect of finance as well. So can we present Islamic banking as a ethical, a viable alternative to the conventional system? And I think we can. Uh, the fundamentals or the teachings are there, right? Um, so it can be done, but that's where we're at now. That's where AIFM, I believe, is playing a very good, important role. If you want to export Islamic finance or export as a viable option, then we may need to make it easier for them or those people who are from unconventional markets, to do business with us, with banks. And that's where standardization is one of the most important things when it comes to this. That's just no architecture of Islamic banking. Application of Islamic. You guys want to go for a break, or should we continue for another half an hour? And then let me just check something. Okay, up to you guys. I go for half an hour, or we can, know. Two is, I'm assuming two is another half an hour away. We'll be back. Okay. At two, we'll be back at two. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. See you guys, inshallah, in two. Close this for now. I'll see you guys. So, guys, can we just start? Is this everyone? We've got 6 people here. Um, okay, so Astana guys, I can see you guys at the back. Please. Okay. you back. Come on, I can see you. They can't hear me. Okay, okay. All right. Bit of a party in there. Can you guys hear me now? Muted? Yep. Okay, so and I'll cover some of this stuff quickly and might skip over some of the stuff because I want to go to the Sukuks and equities. And I'm done most of it. So this recap. So you guys can hear as in Astana? Here we go. All right. So when it comes to Islam, and I'll do this quickly so we can go on to the Sukuks and equities. Yeah. So when it comes to Islamic saving accounts, and this is um, what contracts are or might be used for different products, right? Deposit accounts for Islamic saving accounts, you usually use Wadiya Yad, which I explained earlier, or you got Mudarba, which is a profit sharing investment account. Yeah. This or unrestricted, so Islamic investment account can also be a Mudarba. The difference, just quickly, and I'm sure Fateh covered this, but the difference between a restricted and unrestricted investment account, we all know that. Yeah. Restricted, tell your Mudarib or that I only want to invest in, for example, energy stocks or whatever, in a thing. Unrestricted, give him the money. You give the bank or the Mudarib the money, and you say that here's the money. Get into a partnership, and you make you do business from it. I don't give any restrictions. You make halal money for me. So that's restricted and unrestricted. Uh, so I've done this. We covered this earlier. In a savings account, Wadiya savings account, the custodian is entitled to use the deposited property for trading purposes. The right to any income derived from utilization of the item and liability damages. Okay, discussed. Custodian is the bank, the person or the entity who's keeping the money, the property on behalf, who's for safekeeping. Because under his or her discretion to give some gift, like Hiba we discussed, this gift not be in the form of a pre-agreed arrangement. So it be pre-agreed, but he can or she can give a gift or Hiba. The custodian must give property to the owner at any time upon request of the depositor or the owner. So this is just so this is just a gold sharing investment account. Like I discussed earlier, there are two: restricted and unrestricted. Unrestricted is when you don't put any stipulations to the bank, and this shows on the balance sheet of the bank. Restricted sharing investment accounts are when you put stipulation to the bank. You say that I only want exposure to energy stocks or the energy industry, or I only want exposure to real estate, and these are off-balance sheet items for an Islamic bank. Right? So this is how it works. So this is customer deposit, but this is the unrestricted investment accounts. So the bank makes a common pool of deposits, some of its own funds and the customer deposit. So it can get financing or investments. So it does its investments and its financing using money, and then the common pool of profit, and the profit is shared between the customer and the bank. Very simply, this is a diagrammatic representation of that. Financing side, you've got your equity-based or debt-based financing. For house financing, usually we use diminishing musharaka. Then in asset financing, you can be your capital ijara, which is ijara mutayyab bin tabligh. You can have murabaha as well. So financing is mostly tawarruk in the middle in the GCC. It's mostly tawarruk, murabaha or tawarruk. Ijara for car financing. If you want to finance a car, that's mostly for the ijara. For personal financing, such as a personal loan, or either use commodity murabaha or a tawarruk, mostly tawarruk, GCC at least. Financing again, murabaha if you need working raw material and stuff, and if you want an asset, then so it's the difference between equity-based financing and debt-based financing. Under equity-based financing, the customer owes no obligation to the bank. What does that mean? So for when we do a mudaraba or a murabaha, right? If you turn, that makes it riba. Yeah. The third slide I discussed was real economic activity, risk sharing. Right? Risk sharing, then the rationale behind Islamic economic theory falls apart. So we risk sharing. So here, if when it comes to partnership, the customer owes financial obligation to the bank. Profit sharing element to it. The bank has no recourse to the customer in an event of payment of expected profits of negligence and misconduct. The bank cannot force the customer to pay the expected profits. Obviously, there's negligence or misconduct on behalf of the customer. Right? For example, if a business made a loss during the day-to-day deals, the bank cannot force the customer to pay something. But on that, if there was a risk-taking or something like that, then the bank can tell the customer that this is your fault. You owe me some money due to negligence. Debt financing creates an obligation upon the customer to pay a particular amount of money to the bank in all circumstances in control of the contract. So, for example, I've got an adjust up to asset, right? And once I use this asset, now it's my obligation because I've used this asset to pay the rent of this asset. No matter if I've used it, there's our justice here that I've used it, and now I have recourse. The bank or the entity or the person has recourse, the right to demand money for the rent for the asset that I've used, right? So it's debt-based financing. So that's going over diminishing musharaka. I'll go over the diagram. Diminishing musharaka is where diminishing means reducing, right? So this is usually used for house financing, where both the where, for example, the customer and the bank go and pay a musharaka to buy a house. So the down payment or the capital contribution is given 80%, for example, by the bank and percent by the customer, right? First is the musharaka contract, and then after what happens is there is a simultaneous ijara where the bank tells that you can use my part of the asset, but you have to rent on it. Yeah, the customer pays rent on the asset. After this, the customer with these periodic rentals also starts to buy the ownership part of the bank. So for bank first owned 80-20. Now the customer after 5 years buy a certain part of the house which belonged to the bank. So now it's 40/60. But the customer paid on the bank's portion. After a period of time, 5 to 10 years, 100% of the house is owned by the customer. Yeah. Come on, guys, what happened here? Sorry. Wait back. Sorry. Yeah. So here we are. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. All right. So and at the end of this contract, there is also a sale. So ijara, like there was a question earlier on ijara muntayyab and tamlik. Now the issue is if it's a capital ijara muntayyab and tamlik, or an operating ijara where there's no transfer of asset. There are two aspects to its 80%. So basically, there's a question that does add to its 80%. It's basically what I think what's been trying to ask is back up to the 80%. Well, I mean that's it depends on how it's structured. It can, but that will be the price of it. So the house price of it can be over the market price. Can be if again, like I said, Islamic contracts is both parties mutually agree on something, then it can be done. Okay, so it really depends if both parties agree. So for example, in the market the prices of the house is 100, but maybe we can say that you know. But again, rental you can. I mean, look, if you're paying rental, yeah, Jara, it can be anything, right? The 80% house price, yeah, use of that asset can be the markup. The rental can be the use of the asset. So that can be again is how you structure the contract. So the house price is so 80% is the house price. House price. The markup can be what your charge rent to the customer that asset, right? So it depends. Equity ratio 100, not. And at the end of the contract, bank will own zero of the house. Profit through rentals, that can be done. Profit through capital appreciation. So for example, sorry that if you can not immediately because then everyone can see the question. So there's another question. So the profits by rentals, the bank can profit both ways. So rentals as well. But for example, there's capital appreciation. 10 years ago, a house cost $100,000. Maybe after years, the house can cost $200,000. And in the cost of the house, so obviously when the customer is buying back part of the house, then the bank can also leverage off the capital appreciation. The bank can add, can charge extra rentals like use of rentals, but it again depends, really, honestly. It depends on the contract. If both parties agree, how to do it, so it really depends on the contract. No of them are similar. Just like meals in a bank are similar. The policy of the bank, or the jurisdiction, the market, the real market. Is it in Islam? Is it increasing a lot? So it really depends. All of these things need to be considered. But the bank can profit from both the rentals and capital appreciation. The question was that equity ratio is 100 to not 0 to 100. At the close of the contract, what I know is that 100% of the asset is owned by the customer. And I was mentioning ijara. So ijara bin tayyib bin tamlik is a two contracts for ijara lease rentals And at the end of the lease period, there's a sale contract as well. So you have to execute a sale contract, right? Not just there's a one contract signed and then you know do that. At the end of the lease term, you can sale contract. Now in the sale contract, you can either sell at par value, or you can sell it, or just sell it without charging anything, right? Zero, you can have a $0 or $1 sale contract, as a token amount. You've recovered all your money over the 10 years or 5 years lease rental period. So at the end of the contract lease rental period, you can just charge $1 or $2 and just initial sale contract to sell that asset, right? So it depends how you structure that ijara contract. This is how, again, let me quickly do it. Quickly do it again. Okay. So the bank starts off by, for example, 80% ownership of the house, and the customer 20%. Right? Bank says, okay, so this is initially you have a musharaka agreement. The bank says you can use this part of that, but you pay rental on. Right? The customer pays rental on the bank's portion. Simply, as the years progress, the customer buys part of the bank's initial investment. So in the middle stages, it started off 80-20. The ratio can be 40-60. 40% ownership to the bank, 60% ownership to the customer, and at the end, it will be 100% ownership to the customer. This is just a sample musharaka mutanakis payment structure. As you can see, that rental portion, customer and the bank. So the customer is paying, I think this is ownership. Sorry, ownership. So 900,000. I think this is 100,000. Yes. You see that 100% ownership of the customer ratio. Look at this. Sorry, the customer is 10% at the beginning, and if you after 240 months, you've got 100% ownership of to the customer. From a perspective, because it's 10% and you call it 9%. So the lease rent, the rental is 1,000. 900 ringgits goes to the bank, and 100 ringgits goes to the customer. Obviously, if you go down, the rental agreement to the customer increases, and bank eventually gets nothing because 100% is owned. 6%. Sorry, what do you mean? How do you rate 6%? I don't understand the question. But it's more of rates from a bank, whatever they've charged. But this is just a sample, So where do you take 6%? They've given here 10. Now I have to take up. Yes, percent. Yes. So divided by. I'll calculate this when I take. I'll look into that. I don't want to take out my calculator and start calculating. But I'll back to this. I'll explain to you the exact calculation later. But this is just to give you an idea. Can you upload this, please? Okay, sure. I mean, I'll tell Ruslan. I'll mail it to him. Okay, that's not an issue. I'll also. I mean, obviously, look, benchmark, obviously conventional use. I'll upload the recording of this presentation. I think I've started the recording, so there will be up. I can share the presentation. That's not an issue. Just don't share it with anyone else, please. Because I use this everywhere else as well, in other places. And we've discussed this. So conventional benchmarks, it doesn't matter the conventional benchmark if it, let's say, why the rent? This rental payment will be the same, right? Going to the bank will change, right? So, for example, this is a property, right? This is a 100 property. On rental is $1,000, right? It won't change. The percentage which goes to the bank changes. For example, if you can see, follow my cursor. This cursor. This is a notional amount. It is that 100 goes to the customer. Obviously, if the customer is paying, then he's only paying 900, right? To the then 898. Then 890. This is just a notional amount to say that first 900 paid to 900 or 90% of the rental was going to the bank because the bank owed 90% of the asset or the property. Now, at the end, the bank and customer owns 100%. Okay, so I think it's the approach used was not exponential. I think it was there's called the 7 or 27 to calculate the rental. But I'll give it to you. Let me go back to my calculation and then I'll give you the numbers. I wanted to show this to you, not explain the calculation to this. So don't worry about the calculation. We won't ask about it. But if you're interested in it, then I can explain it to you when after we come to this from the second break. Okay. There's an answer. Okay, so now so they give the rent to the third party. No, they don't give the rent to third party. This is just between the customer and the bank. The total rent property on the total property is $1,000, for example, right? 900 is being paid to the bank. The 100 is for the customer to keep. And the customer it's a notional amount. The customer obviously wants himself $100. Only this is just to show calculation. What attributable out of the monthly payment? What is attributable to the customer and what is attributable to the bank? Okay. So don't confuse yourself here. This is just to show, what will be attributable to him. But I'll come back to this. Okay, so don't we will come back to this. Okay, the calculation bit. So owner of the asset, lessee benefiting from the asset, and then your consideration, which is the rent and the use of the asset. Rather, like we discussed earlier, based on LIBOR and whatnot. So this is quickly because I'm sure you guys have done it. So leased asset available, provide guarantee to cover against defect, maintain and repair the asset. This is also important, by the way. Raise the asset on a specified. This is important payment of asset only in case of negligence or misconduct. Right, leasing a car, right, and you're doing it rashly, and you have an accident or whatever, then if it is your fault, the bank, you cannot say to the bank, okay, by the way, this is destroyed, now I'll pay you anything. The bank will look, especially if it's uninsured. Usually the assets are insured, but especially uninsured, then the bank can make you pay for it if it's your misconduct, right? Muraba. Not working again. Guys, let me try. I don't know what's going on. My point is acting up. Sorry, let me just. Yeah, sorry. Anyway, also let's see obligations. Distinguish your muraba from ordinary sale is that the seller discloses the price, the cost of the cost buyer, and the profit or the markup is known, right? A simple muraba transaction works. The customer goes to the bank. It needs raw material, for example. The bank goes to the supplier, buys material at, for example, $100, machine or whatever, at $100, and sells it at a deferred payment basis to the customer at 110, right? And this is what a muraba transaction looks like. And because people can say, well, this looks similar to a conventional loan, because you're getting you went to a bank, bought something for 100, but no, it's not, because you have taken there's underlying real economic asset or activity here has taken a risk. So, for example, the bank bought the 100 coming from the storehouse and going towards another storehouse in the owner's bank. In case something happens to the asset, then the bank will have to take a hit. So, taking a risk of the asset, right? After the sale has taken place here, then the risk of the asset goes to the customer, because ownership has, been changed from the bank to the customer. Over percent of all business volumes of Islamic Bank comprise Murabaha transactions. Now, the word is also based on Murabaha, but we'll discuss when it comes. Okay, Islamic, again, we're going to quickly go over this. You got on your asset side, you got your investments in real estate. So you have your actual asset, like you have physical assets before selling. You have direct equity investments, which is your musharaka, leasing and trading in real estate, in ijara, fund management, because you can have your, management as well, because you can give your money and people can, a mudarib or a rabbul mal, right? Different in Sukuk. What is the different has? And the deferred payment, I believe Bay'ul is a deferred payment. Murabaha can give you 3-4 options, and again the most what do you call it, distinct of a Murabaha is that you need to know cost and the market and the customer. You have to make the markup known, right? Deferred, I think it's more or less, I don't think you have to, it's a common sale, but you say just that you can pay me later at a later point. But what distinguishes the Murabba from all other sales is that your cost and markup are known to the customer, right? On the liability, you've got your equity profit sharing investment accounts. You've got PER, profit equalization reserve, and investment risk reserves. I don't know in this slide if I cover the PER and IRR. But time, remind me. I might do it. It's just a couple of slides, but it's interesting. It's good to know. Sharia compliance, IFSB, like I mentioned earlier, the Islamic Financial Services Board. And again, sorry if I'm going quickly on these next 3-4 slides, because I want to go on equities and Sukuks, right? So don't worry, this is stuff which I'm assuming you already know this, in the sense that you covered 5 or 6 classes now, 5 classes. So I'm assuming you know most of this, right? IFSB, the Islamic Financial Services Board, defines Sharia risk arising when an Islamic financial institution, financial services, fails to the Sharia rules and principles determined by the Sharia board of IFI or the bodies in the jurisdictions in which the IFI operates. For example, there might not be, any regulations. So then you have to, refer to your Sharia board, the rules and principles set by the Sharia board, right? That's the point. Right? But in jurisdictions where there are regulations or legislations, you have to abide by those as the first and foremost. In certain cases, in certain jurisdictions, you have certain aspects of Islamic finance which are covered by the central bank, but which are ignored. So then you actively assess what your Sharia board says according to a product manual and what your regulator says. So it's a combination of both. That contract documentation complies with Sharia rules and principles with formation, termination, and other elements affecting contract performance, such as fraud, misrepresentation, duress, or any rights and obligations. Right. So this is just by IFSB. So in Islamic contract, you have to look at it. The contractual form. What are the rules to abide by that contract? So for example, if it's an ijara or if it's an ijara contract, then the bank ensure that you own that before you give it to lease, give it as a lease, right? So you actually buy an asset, take the risk of the asset. And trust me, there have been, this might sound counterintuitive, but there have been many cases of Sharia non-compliance when you do go do your audits, that the banks, the, the way they were executed, first the job was executed, unfortunately, and the buying of the actual asset was executed. So this also leads to Sharia non-compliance. For example, if a customer comes to you, right, or a bank, and you have a deal with a showroom that you can lease the car, right? But you lease the car, you first have to buy that car. You have to call the showroom or execute a contract. You have to buy the car, right? This is right. But if it's sitting in front of you, you tell him sign the Jara contract first, right? It's signed. Then call the agent and say, "Buy. I'm going to buy this car," and then you. So that stuff leads to non-compliance. It happens more than you would know. Um, it's because as a sales rep, you know, or a bank sales rep is paid on the amount of sales he or she does, rather than the amount of Sharia non-compliance and everything. And then if it's a big huge bank, these things can, when you're a Sharia audit, you can, and people who audit would know that go by each and every transaction you have to do a sampling, and some of this stuff can go through sampling, cannot be by sampling, so it really depends. So it's the key. If you don't do it properly, the contract should be followed. The steps of the contract are very important, right? For example, it doesn't make sense you leasing something which you don't own, right? So this is very important to look at when you do Sharia audits and stuff, right? Um, so and the Islamic form of the transaction, obviously the legal documentation. What is the legal relationship between the bank and the customer, as per jurisdiction, as per the law. Right? Now, under the Roman Convention, right, there's mention that every contract which is executed should be according to Swiss law. So who had contracts, would see that this is in case of any, conflict, they will be dealt under the law of Kazakhstan, under the law of Pakistan, Bahrain. So they should, every contract, legally binding contract, should be in accordance or under the specific jurisdiction. Unfortunately, Sharia is not the law of any country, right? There is no which says that this country is Sharia law, right? So we cannot force, on certain contracts. For example, Sukuk contracts, and I don't know if I cover this later on in Sukuk, but all Sukuk contracts, or more, but most Sukuk contracts are governed under English common law, right? And Sharia obviously is not recognized. So if Sharia non-compliance issue, and if court, the judge, his or her judgment according to English common law. If an ijara, for example, has been executed and there have been they can have not been correct, the judge does not have to deal with that. It depends on his intellect and everything. He might, but his duty is to look at what English common law says about this. And if we do cases, usually when I teach lawyers, I do a lot of cases. I think I cover one or two here. Even gas. So the most recent case of Dana gas Sukuk issuance, right? It went to British court, and its British court ruled in favor of the investors. The British court said that this is you have taken money from investors and you are obligated to pay them an amount or return their money, right? But said, and to the UAE court, the UAE court said that yes, according to Mudaraba, you cannot force someone to pay if you've lost. Like according to Mudaraba, it's a profit sharing investment, profit and loss sharing, right? I can't force someone to say, oh, you made a loss, but you still have to owe me money. right? But UK court, UK doesn't, you know, recognize the mudarba, right? So it's a tricky. Although having said that, I'm not in favor of the what Dana Gas did, right? So that is a gas producer, right? It's a company which produces gas. It's based in the UAE. The owner is, I think, Egyptian or something, and they had a lot of projects in Iraq and in Egypt and others. Now financial crunch, right? Issued a sukuk, right? And its lawyers, what geniuses the lawyers were, they said, you know what, according to Mudarba, yeah, you don't have to pay if you're facing liquidity issue, you don't have to pay your investors, and that's what Dana Gas did. What was interesting was, okay, so you can simple Dana Gas till then, right? Okay, maybe, right? But what was that don't have money, we can't pay you, right? Now, after 7 months, it was going into court and the proceedings were taking place. It Kurdistan, which is in Iraq. So the Kurd region, in Iraq, a project which actually paid them $1 billion. Now, reasonably speaking, if you get $1 billion, you have some responsibility to pay back your investors, right? But I said, oh, still, we got money, but we don't want to really pay because, we have other issues. So what Dana Gas was trying to do was trying to get this contract of paying people the returns and even the principal, actually. What was, we can't do the profits which we agreed on, the indicative profits we agreed on, and we not give your money back. We won't give your money back. What we'll do is we'll keep your money, we'll reissue the sukuks to you, but these sukuks. So, for example, if we said that indicative return was 10%, for example, in sukuks we'll say that we can only pay you 5% going forward, right? So it was trying to really squeeze its investors, and it was bad for the industry. And sukuks did take a hit. But obviously, this was not a sovereign country or a sovereign sukuk. So it was. So if it was a sovereign sukuk, then it would have been really, really bad. Sovereign sukuk issued by a country. This was private sukuk. So that's an explanation of what happened in Dana Gas. Oh, so okay. So just to discuss two case studies on Sharia non-compliance when it comes to transactions. This was with credit risk and default. This is between Investment Dar Co and Bloom Development Bank of Lebanon. So Kuwait had a Kuwait. This was based in Kuwait. The Investment Dar was a holding company, refused to pay Lebanon's Bloom Bank $10.7 million. The original deal did not comply with Islamic law. Right? Now, the interesting thing about this deal was that, and this was something with Dana Gas actually, that the deal was approved by the Sharia board of the Investment Dar, and then okay, yeah, maybe our Sharia board did it, but we with this is Sharia non-compliant. A brief circulated in a British court asking for the principal it invested plus a 5% return as a structure conducted with Dar in 2007. Now, what is Sharia compliant? Can anyone tell me? What is compliant? Yeah, it's a deal long time. So it says it was a Wakala agreement. But I mean, it's there. But what do you think makes it non-compliant? Yes. Yeah. So the last a 5% return. So in the contract, It set a specific return which was fixed. And if it's a Waldia contract, you cannot do that. The Waldia is an agency contract, but not fix your return. Especially if it's not the underlying contract is not ijara. But even if it's an ijara, you can say that this is the expected rental agreement. So that's what the investment are said, that this is a Gala agreement and it's a fixed return. Should void. The contract called for the company to return the principal investment plus the fixed profit, 5%. Right? The lead to the issue that the Sharia compliance needed to go to proper deliberation, but considering the deposit, the investment does had to pay the amount initially by Bloom Development Bank. So like Dana Gas, investment saying no, we'll keep the can only give this much or whatever, but said no, you turn the principal amount and think about the Sharia aspect later, but for now you have to give the principal. But deal was withdrawn and they went out for an out of court settlement. So they went for court settlement. This is another. This happened in Malaysia. So this was being against a defaulting customer, foreclosure against a defaulting customer. So Malaysian Finance Barad and Taman Asanjaya. So this was a Rabha agreement, right? And was that the bank financing agency took the customer to court to say because the customer had not paid Rabha tranches, it defaulted on it. Was that the judge ruled of the customer, right? The bank financing agreement, and because the contract was a non-bona fide sale, so it wasn't an actual sale. The contract, for example, I'll tell you what it was. And we discussed this earlier. Once that is executed, change the price. I sell something to you or someone for $, then I can say, oh yeah, by the way, I sold you for $10. Can you give me $2 more? Finished, right? Finished, no price. But in this, contract, it was such that you had option to assert to. So the judge said, wait a minute, this isn't a resale then. If you can change the price of the charge agreement to it, then you can't call it a bona fide a real sale. So what the bank said was that in case you've made any profits on top of the financing facility, you have to return to the customer, right? So how strict that ruling was. So for example, I financed this for $1 to the customer, and I charge $100 above it. So financing is $1,100, right? So the bank said, if you've taken money above 1,000, you have to return all of that money back to the customer. So this was one of those contracts. So this was this isn't all the time, by the way. But in this case, the judge wanted to make a historic judgment that not only Islamic bank customers are at fault. Sometimes Islamic banks need to look what they're doing as well. In Malaysia, we're on Islamic capital markets now. Islamic capital markets, the global Islamic Sukuk market presents, and from 2015. So this has changed slightly, but more the same as a percentage-wise. It's the same. The amounts have changed, obviously, but a percentage more or less is the same. So global Sukuk and Islamic funds, they represent about 20% of the finance industry. Right. Represents 11% of all Sukuks issued by. This was till 2000. I would say now it's about 13, 14. Right. Considering Dubai is listed, although it's not issuing, but is one of the largest listings of Sukuks is now in Dubai and LSE, London Stock Exchange, Asia. But mostly domestic Sukuks, right? We're talking also foreign sukuks. So usually, if a foreign country or company wants to list their sukuks, they either opt for Dubai or the stock exchange. This is just a snapshot of the GCC. Saudi Arabia leads Sukuk issuer. Obviously, Bahrain is considering size, it's 6%. Considering size, it's still punches above its weight. All right. Till 2016. So now, of Sukuks have seen a decline over the years, but sovereign Sukuks are still the most favored. Right? Sukuks, the Sukuks issued by countries, right? Still, the majority of the Sukuks being issued. I think 2016-17, going forward, Sukuk issues are poised to pick up. I mean, Pakistan is going to issue a Sukuk this year, right? The one which was announced last year by President Nazarbayev. Yeah, that was going to be issued this year. So quite another few countries are trying to. I mean, believe it or not, we were talking to central banks from Russia, and they were also exploring. This was when there was some political issues going on with the West. So they were exploring issuing Sukuks as well to invest liquidity through from the GCC and other countries using Sukuk. So they're also exploring this, by the way, right? But they are exploring this as an alternative as well, especially to finance infrastructure. So for infrastructure financing. But if oil is going to rebound, oil has rebounded, and it's going to go slightly up as well in this year, maybe to $80 or $100 a barrel, but maybe 50 to 60. So maybe it won't be needed, but you never know. You never know. So one of the most used structures is Murabaha, right? The Ijara structure, right? But again, the thing, the structure that's used, Murabaha, I think the Malaysians prefer the Murabaha structure. The Malaysians Malaysia is the highest lister of Sukuks, but those are domestic Sukuks, right? But Sukuks, I think there are other countries that dominate the international Sukuk market. So major treasury options apart from Sharia compliant business and equities, your shares, your Sukuks, Morti Marabaha or Tabarruk. So the major avenues for the treasury function are these three. I think there are not others. There are many others as well, but usually, some countries have your overnight facilities with the central bank, overdraft as well. So it depends really, but the major three are. Yeah, you can. Thing is, so there's an answer to the after the crisis. There were lots of Sukuk issuers during I'll come back now and answer this question. Post 2009, right? Muslim countries, they, especially the GCs, especially the oil producing countries, they were actually the what do you call it, GCC oil producing countries. They actually working counterintuitive to the global economy. Oil was at $100-$120 a barrel, right? So there was a boom in the GCC, even Malaysia, Indonesia, these oil producing countries, even Russia, and even I'm sure Kazakhstan also experienced that. While there was a global financial crisis, but for oil producing countries and gas producing countries, it was the time great, right? So at that time, a lot of these countries, decided they want to leverage or tap into the liquidity in the market, so they should Sukuks. So yes, a lot of Sukuks, even Bahrain actually issues. Bahrain was the first issue of Sukuk in 2000, the modern Sukuk. Obviously, Sukuk dates back to the Ottoman Empire, but the modern Sukuk, the first one, most of them are GCC countries and Malaysia. So GCC countries and Malaysia, yes. So because you need to factor in these are total Sukuk issues. I've said it before that Malaysia issues a lot of Sukuks, by far the most Sukuks by any other country, but the Malaysian therefore the domestic consumption, right? The Bank Negara Malaysia has, if you issue a bond, if you issue Sukuk, it's better to issue a Sukuk because you get tax breaks and stuff like that. So all the institutions there mostly rely on Sukuks to get to 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 raise liquidity. Yeah, mostly Malaysian GCC. Limited to that, but this boom was because of that oil boom. This increase was because of that oil boom. We saw 2009, 2008, 2009 financial features of Islamic equities. Yeah. The underlying activity obviously the main thing is that the equity should be halal, should be Sharia compliant. They should be free from prohibited activities such as gambling, murder, and pork, for example. So Sharia compliant. So we'll discuss two types of screening methodologies with you: the Dow Jones Islamic Index and the FTSE, the FTSE, times Stock Exchange Halal Index, right? And how they do the Sharia compliance screening. So all equity screening process goes through these steps. There is a core screening which sees the business activity, right? Is it halal or haram? If it's the alcohol producer, then it's haram, so you take that out of the universe of activities. Once you universe of halal activities, then there's financial screening as well, right? So screening, and I'll discuss that in the next slide what that is. And if then that's your Sharia compliant equities, right? So business screening, if the business, and then financial screening as well. You have a few ratios, and if they meet the minimum ratios, then they are considered as halal or Sharia compliant equity. So for Islamic markets, core beverages, free from alcohol, port-related products, conventional financial services such as non-Islamic banking, your insurance, entertainment, casinos, gambling, cinemas, music, all the non-compliant stuff, and web. So use out first. The equities, what you do is financial screening. All must be less than 33%, 1/3. Where does 33% come from? Why are we using it? Because I tell you, a couple of yes, well, so someone knows a lot. But we don't know the company, and I asked this actually just yesterday or day before. I wanted to confirm because I had 3 different sources of these, but one sure was I can go to a long discussion on that, but I try to resist that discussion and say that let's just stick to this. Justified and a lot of things are non-justified. But like if you use your intellect and if it makes sense, you can justify it. But I've mentioned it before. Some practices I agree with, some practices of the industry I don't agree with, and I've told that to bankers as well. It's not like just I tell students. I've told that, for example, commodity murabah and tawarruk is something I don't agree with. And we'll come to that and we'll discuss that. You can use a benchmark. I mean, it's not justified 100%, but you can use as a benchmark. So one of the companions of Prophet Sallallahu came to that he was old and he was nearing his death. Right. The companion that I might, my hair is weak or whatever, give 100% of my wealth, for charity. And Allah asked him, do you have children? And he said, yes, the Prophet disapproved. I think he's quiet, but when he stays quiet, then this means his disapproval, or he just disapproved. Then the best, I want to leave half of my wealth after I die. Again, they approved or did not agree. The companion asked, I leave 1/3 of my wealth, 30 at least, then agreed to it, right? So from you taken it just taken the that something the Prophet ﷺ has also said in that it is to leave your children or when you depart, when you die, rather they go and ask other people for money. So in Islam, you have to think about your future generation as well. It's not me and then everything is given to charity and all that. You have to, they're stakeholders because in the Quran says you are a shepherd, right? Flock. Shepherd means the person who tends to sheep, right? So you're just worried about being a good Muslim. You are accountable for your stakeholders, people in society, for your family, for your right. It's not just you. In Islam is holistic, and that's when I think Islamic finance is also holistic. When you come to ethical finance, it should be towards society. It should be not just about profits. That's what I tell people. Anyway, so we take the 33%. 1 divided by 3 is 33%, right? That's something which might be the sense that you are making halal income, yeah, so 1/3, but it's not tayyib, and it's not the best, but it's 1/3 is something which you are making halal income, so you can allow some of it to go in another direction. That's the justification which this gives. I'm not a Sharia scholar. I'm just telling you what they use this or this underlying reasoning for the 33%. Or be less than 33%. Total debt divided by trailing 12-month average market capitalization. Now, capitalization is your stocks in issuance in the stock price. So your 12-month market capitalization. So total debt divided by trailing 12-month market capitalization should be less than 33%. Companies' cash and interest-bearing securities divided by trailing 12-month average market capitalization should be less than 33%. Accounts divided by trailing 12-month average market capitalization of less than 33%. Total interest non-compliant activities, it should not exceed 5% of total revenue. What does that mean? So for I am right. Everyone knows Emirates Airlines also sells alcohol, right? In their business, they serve alcohol and everything. Now, haram, right? It's transportation. You're taking people from one stop, one country to another, one city to another. The business is if they're taking less percent of the total revenue, total income from, then you can invest in it. Not if it's more than 5%, then obviously we consider it as haram. So we invest in Emirates Airlines. So a non-compliant activity income should not exceed. This is the last one. For the FTSE, and after we'll do an example, and you guys will do it, by the way. You guys will do it. So screen again, and I'll come to this in the sense I'll show this to you, and then you can write it down as well if you want. So with this, I'm recording all of this, and I will put this. You can access this. So even live, you can see. You're seeing this is being recorded. Apart from my voice, this is being recorded as well. Screening for the FTSE. Again, got your core screen similar to the one, your alcohol, your pork-related products, conventional financial activities, entertainment, tobacco, weapons, and defense. So screening is your business activity, right? Then debt is of total assets. Interest bills are less than 33%. Here it takes total assets. We're taking in the Dow Jones, it takes your market capitalization. But in the FTSE, FSC, it takes your total assets as a denominator. So your interest-bearing items should be less than 33%. Account and cash less than 50% of total assets. So here's total list and non-compliant activities should again not exceed 5% of total revenue. Okay, go to the example. What happens when it becomes non-compliant? For example, I have a portfolio of Sharia compliant activities, and all of a sudden, in 40 minutes, all sales become so high that they exceed the 1% benchmark. What happens? Now, what scholars have allowed, and in restrictions as well. I mean, in Saudi Arabia, once it becomes non-compliant, you have to get rid of it as soon as possible. But other countries, for example, you bought share at $10, right, and write $5. So if you're making a loss for your shares, so the scholars have allowed you to hold on to that equity till it comes closer to or equal to the $10 of your initial investment, and then you can sell it. Any dividends that come, you have to pay to charity. Any dividends come from it, you have to pay for charity because it become the equity has become non-compliant. Right. Now, so I can take it back to the Dow Jones. So can you just write this down? Company and company. We will discuss. We'll see which one is Sharia compliant and which one is not. Can you guys just because I wanted the Dow Jones calculation. Written? Written? Yeah, can you please keep the answers to yourselves for now, so we can wait for everyone else to do it? Have you all written this, so I can take it back to the methodology? Written this? Okay, cool. So do a financial screening. So this is Jones, total debt by trailing market average and all that. I'll give you like literally. I'm sure you can do it in 5 minutes. It's not that hard. Some people answer. And you got one answer. Which question is that you know which these is Sharia compliant and which of these A, company A or company B is compliant and which of them is not. To the Dow Jones, according to the Dow Jones, financial screening. These are a few, there are a few answers. No, so someone over leveraged. Now over leveraged and more than 33%, less than 33%. If they're less than 33%, financial ratios are met and they're less than 33%, then it is compliant, by the way. Divided 12-month trailing average, which I think is given. Um, Market cap. So if debt is less than 33%, then it is compliant. Okay, let's see solution. By the way, company A is compliant, company B is non-compliant. Let's see how. Total debt position 40 by 135, 29% less than 33%. Yeah, so that's fine. Interest-bearing securities divided by market capitalization, plus interest-bearing securities, 85%, less than 33%, so compliant. Market capitalization. Accounts market capitalization, 8%, so less than 33%, so compliant. So company is compliant. Debt divided by market capitalization, 21 divided by 3 is 35%, so which makes it more than 33%, which makes it non-compliant. Yeah? Any? Okay, so straightforward, alhamdulillah. Now we come to Sukuk, which is an interesting topic, Sukuk structuring. By the way, do you guys go on a second break? Or just continue till we finish? You do. When do you guys go? Oh, break, please. Okay, let's see. Let me check. Okay, we've got. You guys want a break? Okay, quite a few things to cover. Take a break and we'll meet at 30. Okay, 15 minutes. You can take it, but then not going to any break after that. Okay, we have quite things to cover, and I know it's your weekend, so I can't be that harsh on you guys. So back in 15 minutes. Okay. All right. See you guys. Ready when you are, guys. Ready? Yep. Having a party. All right. So what we'll do is Sukuks now. Yeah, everyone's here. Yeah, everyone from the other center, everyone from home. Yeah. Okay. I'm sure everyone's here now. Right. We'll go jump into Sukuks and um, the structuring part you guys will get because on end of the day these are like Mudbar Musharik or Jara transactions. But what we'll cover real life Sukuks which have been issued over the years. Right. Um, what is a Sukuk? A Sukuk, for lack of a better word, is something of an Islamic bond. Um, it's like security which tries to mimic the payment schedule of a bond, a conventional bond. Um, facilitated pricing is similar to conventional fixed income securities. Um, Prices can be similar to conventional fixed income securities that are benchmarked to interest-based indices such as the LIBOR. Obviously, it has Islamic finance in well. A lot of non-Muslim countries have leveraged off Sukuks to raise financing. The UK, Nigeria, you've got a lot of countries, host of countries which have used Sukuk to raise financing. Right? So certain markets such as London, Malaysia, Singapore, and Hong Kong have very welcoming of the Sukuk market. Dubai as well. So Sukuk, the payment structure similar to a conventional bond. You pay initial Sukuk price like a bond. You pay the bond price. You get periodical payments to bondholders. At the end of the tenure, so for example, 5 years Sukuk, you get your payment as well as your repayment for the Sukuk issue purchased. So paid $100 for this, and then 5 you get your $100 back. You buy back the Sukuk. At that period, you will get some periodic payment as well. Right. So obviously, according to Sharia, because bonds are debt-based instruments, with interest payments. So the Islamic version was the same cash flow payment bonds. Different types of Sukuk ownerships: ownership of tangible assets, rights to usufruct, equity of a given project. Securitization, Sukuk securitization. What is it? Securitization is a structured finance process in which assets, receivables, or financial instruments are acquired into pools and offered as collateral for 30 investments. So similar share. So a share represents one share represent, for example, owner of that company, right? So suppose a company has 100 shares in issuance, each would represent 1% ownership of that company. If you own 10 shares, then you own 10% of that company, right? To that, in securitization, what happens is you either take assets or you take receivables and you securitize and offer the bonds in return of that. So, for example, if there's a power generating turbine, right, and the government wants to raise money using that asset, it secures that asset and, for example, issues 100 Sukuks here, right? So, Sukuk, if I own one Sukuk, I own 1% of that turbine, that asset. If I own Sukuks, I own 10% of that asset. So similar share securitizes the entire company. Sukuk securitize that either even a debt. It can be debt as well, but obviously in debt in Islamic finance is a case issue. I mean, the Hafis allow it. So here you can have securitized debt, but in practice it's not allowed. Right? In Pakistan, in other countries, it's not allowed. Um, so similar to that, right? Security refers also to financing instrument in which tangible assets are sold to a large number of investors. SIFI is representing proportional value of the relevant asset. So similar, like a shares and value or proportionate ownership of that company. This bond or certificate, which is Sukuk or bond, represents ownership of that uh, asset. This is what it looks like. So basic securitization structure. PV, it's a special purpose vehicle. Now, and which is set up by the originator. Originator is the person or is the company or entity which wants to issue the Sukuk. Now, it sets up an SPV, a special purpose vehicle, probably established in the Cayman Islands. It's a separate legal entity in jurisdictions such as Cayman Islands, Jersey, shores, these offshore jurisdictions. And why do that? Why does a company do that? Because independent, remote. So, for example, and it's to protect the investors. Usually, the legal department advises them to set up an SA. It's to protect investors. For example, special purpose vehicle, and investors want to invest in certain assets of this company. Right? What the SPV does, the regulator sets up this SPV. The SPV issues securities, bonds, or Sukuks. Investors buy those Sukuks, and the SPV now has the investors' money. Right? The SPV does is the SPV then buys the assets from the originator. So balance sheet of the originator and the SPV for investors. So what happens to the originator? So remember, imagine in 1 year the originator goes bankrupt, and in the bankruptcy proceedings, you have to liquidate your assets. The asset to the SPV will not be affected because now from the balance sheet of the originator to the SPV. This makes bankruptcy remote. It protects the investors. If there is bankrupt and there is no SPV, then the assets, obviously, all assets will eventually go into liquidation, and then all of the investors will have to be paid according to what is recovered. So that's why this is an entity which is set up to protect the investors. Any return investors from the asset which the SPV owns is paid to the investors. At the end of the term, for example, if it's a 5-year term, at the end of the years, the originator buys the share issued to the securities which were issued to the investors. It buys those, and the initial amount invested by the investors is paid back at maturity. Sometimes there's enhancement as well. There's a third-party guarantor that this will, in case this payment is not made, then we guarantee that we will pay or fill that void. So there is exponential finance. So mudarba, obviously we've done what the mudarba is. You have a Rabbul, you have a Rabbul Mal, you have a Mudarib. Important aspect, issues to equal units. So more on those equal units, but each unit should be equal. Trying to give preference to one partner over the other. Okay, that is it should be equal units. It is not permitted until funds are invested in cash and debt are 49% or below. And why is that? So trade is permitted unless funds are cash and debt is 49% or below. Because each Sukuk will represent what percentage of the underlying asset. Yeah. Now, if asset is majority cash or debt, then according to madhabs, Shafi, you cannot get debt right, at a discount. So for example, riba then, because if it represents cash, right? So imagine if this sukuk, I have I have one sukuk, and this represents 50%, 52% cash, right? So we put and pay the as a normal I put in my money, and currently Mudarib has not invested it anywhere. So currently it just represents money. Now if it valued in $2, and if I the market value it's valued $1 to the in the market at $2.1, and that would be riba. That .1 would be riba. So this represents that would make it Sharia non-compliant. So unless majority is real tangible fixed assets, you're not allowed to trade. It's permitted. Which is also important, which is used a lot, by the way, is to buy at a higher of either issuance or market price to clients from losing capital, but must not be condition at the time of issuance. So the condition or we cannot make a that the customer, the originator, who's issuing the sukuk, who's issuing the sukuk, will buy the sukuks at higher of issuance or market price. But third-party guarantee is acceptable. Now, an issue which is here, which makes it Sharia non-compliant most of the time, it's widely practiced, unfortunately. It is clause usually added, and usually the VAD, because the VAD, the promissory, the unilateral promise contract, and the company says, or add a clause to the contract which says that we will buy back the sukuk after 5 years at this fixed price, which is non-compliant. You're not taking the underlying market risk, And so imagine if the price underlying asset is greater than the promised price. You're an investor, you're losing out. But if there's less and you're guaranteed 100 and the price is to be in the market is 90, then you'll risk, are you? There's no risk. So that's why that's Sharia non-compliant. Mufti Usmani did in one of the IOFC conferences years ago now, did this, and it brought the shares of the sukuk hit the sukuk market, but it to be done. It needed to be done. Especially Astana, you guys, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, cool. So similar to the musharaka is similar to a mudaraba. Again, we know what a musharaka is. It's a partnership, profit and loss sharing. In a mudaraba, it was just profit sharing, and losses to be by the Rabbul Mal. Document required. Musharaka is between the originator and the trustee as partners. Trustee means the SPV. Trustee, SPV, who is coordinating on behalf of all the investors. Agreement between the trustee as a partner and originator as a managing agent. Musharaka is that, usually what happens is two entities, so sukuk holders and the entity go into partnership for a project. The sukuk issuer pays in kind. What in kind means pays in assets. So, for example, a company and we want to build a factory. We want to enter our factory, maybe. Right? So land, but on have the factory. So we enter into a musharaka with the investors, where we give land, which is paid in kind, and they're given the money, which is cash or monetary terms, and we enter into a musharaka agreement. A management agreement between the trustee as a partner and originator, that managing agent will be the partner which is issuing the sukuks. So the company is issuing the sukuk, it makes sense for the managing agent. So all partners appoint the company is issuing the sukuk as the managing agent. Okay. What happens, and I don't agree with this, undertaking or VAD issued by the originator in favor of the trustee, that after 5 years or 10 years, I promise that I will purchase this at a certain price, And also taking. So investors also sign a sale undertaking that after at the maturity period, we will sell back. They can then sell it to someone else at a price. So my made, I'm one of the factory of Sukuk. I'm one of the Sukuk holders. I sell it to someone at a higher price. Yeah. So this to count this taking is given. Wakala again, Wakala is more of an agency contract. You deal on behalf of the agent, the investors. Uh, so you know, required, and we'll go into. By the way, we'll go into detail in the next slide. This is just an overview, so don't panic or anything. That speaking a lot and stuff. When you see it diagrammatically, then it'll make more sense. So the proposed agreement, asset agreement that we, on behalf of the investors, are buying this asset, sale undertaking, that we will sell it as a substitute. A substitute undertaking is usually that in case we're seeing an asset, yeah, Vakil as the agent on behalf of the investors, and asset becomes impaired, or you find that a different asset is more, then you decision taking is advice. Sorry, someone trying to. It's Astana. I see hands. Is there a question? Hand? No, no question. Okay, sorry, then I thought there was. Then you've got Ijara unrequired. Forget the documentation for now. When we go on to the structure, I'll tell you that just a lease agreement, the sale undertaking, the service agency agreement is something which says that yeah, there's own the asset, right, and then they back to the originator, right? But owner the service you know the right of the owner, or the duty of the owner to serve the asset, to deal maintenance of the assets. But because like 1,000 plus or 100, 200 different investors, it's difficult to have for them to take care of the asset. You know, some are maybe domestic, you know, small, some are huge, so it's not their responsibility. It's very hard for them. So a service agency agreement is signed that we give responsibility of the servicing of the asset to the original, you know, maybe the factory or the asset or whatever it is, and we'll pay him X amount for it or whatever for the services rendered. Again, straightforward. You pay up front and you wait for money for your produce to come later on. It's just, you know, a manufacturing Sukuk. You know, more the same things. Forward lease agreement is interesting. We'll come on to that when we do the structure. Again, purchase undertaking, sale undertaking. Again, a simple cost plus markup. Rarely used. I mean, this is used now actually, but just most of the cost plus markup between the customer and the originator and the investors. So here we go. Examples of investment Sukuk structures. Musharaka Sukuk. Okay, not you know, scared or intimidated by the diagram. Here I've covered, the diagram covers each and every aspect of it, and we'll do it one by one. Right? One Sukuk issues the SPV. We know the SPV is the special purpose vehicle set up by the originator. The SPV issues the Sukuk certificates, investing cash. The cash is the contribution towards the musharaka of the holders. The originator usually pays. Remember, I said that usually pays in kind, either real in terms of machines or in terms of property. So the originator pays in kind. So this is the agreement where the investors have paid in money. The originator has paid in kind. of the whenever there's the profit, then it's loss that's shared with the profit and loss sharing. Okay, with both profit and loss between the originator and the SPV. And obviously there's a periodic distribution to the investors as well. So a undertaking which I discussed earlier, purchase undertaking. Remember we said that there should be a purchase undertaking and a sale undertaking. So say that what it says is this contract you enter that at this point, this price I will buy back the share. If the price is mentioned categorically. Oh, sorry, I didn't see this. Sorry. Can every too fast? I can slow down as well, because I got excited and we've got a lot to cover as well. Can everyone hear me? Astana, you guys hear me? Okay. And fast? Is it too fast? Should I slow down? Okay. Okay. So what we're doing is we're at the originator, right? Undertaking with the originator that the originator says that will buy back the of investment or musharaka, something diminishing musharaka actually. So a certain period starts to buy back the share of the not the investors. So imagine a factory, you built an asset, right? The originator gave the land and the investors gave cash. Once asset is made, right? The originator starts to buy back part of the asset, like a diminishing musharaka. And at the end of the lease period, at maturity, 100% of the asset is owned by the originator. Is the Sukuk issuer, right? Discuss this. Now, what this one is, we'll do two cases. This is the Dubai Port convertible Sukuk. This is issued in 2006. The Customs and Free Zone Corporation. Yeah. It was for 24 months, so 2 years. Issued a convertible Sukuk of USD $3.5 billion. $3.5 billion raised by issuers, so raised from investors. And free cranes valued at $1.5 billion was given in kind by the Ports Customs and Free Zone Corporation. 20% to 30%, 70% to the issuer. So those investors got 70% of the profit share, and 30% to the PCFC, the originator or the issuer. Was the interesting thing about this was those convertibility clause in it. If qualified public offering, if those two for public listing, right? If whatever they were making, this Port Custom and Free Zone Corporation was making, if this goes for a public listing, then only if of that 30% of the Sukuk repayment would be shares. So if this project goes onto the stock exchange or the public listed company, then 30% of the company's share will be 30% of the Sukuk repayment will be in terms of those shares, and 70% of it would be cash. Okay, so that's interesting. So what was share? Sukuk holders, your ECFC development, which is the SPV, it issues Sukuks. It proceeds over 5 billion goes the SPV, which is the share of the Sukuk holders in Musharaka. 53 cranes are given into the Musharaka, which is the share of the PCFC. Also, this undertaking, obviously you have the QPO clause as well. And if there is a qualified public offering, then 30% will be paid back in the shares and 70% by cash. And the management agreement. Remember, we did management agreement that all of the partners agree that partner will be the partner. Here we have so many Sukuk holders. Now each cannot be managing it, because it's a bit of a chaos. One of the partners, which is PCFC, the originator says, I am the managing partner, and there's it with everyone that yes, he will be the managing partner. So Sharka profit is greater than the distribution amount. This is distributed to the managing agent, PCFC, at a fee, and if Sharka profit is less, the issuer can exercise the purchase undertaking. This was another clause it could do, but again, I agree with it, because again, are you taking real risk when you have a clause where you can, if you're not getting the amount you expect or the expected amount, then you can just wrap up, and I can execute that clause, exercise the clause where you have to pay me this amount. So again, one of the Sukuk which was issued, right? This is the case 2. This is again Sitara Chemical Industries Limited, Pakistan, with credit enhancement. So the entry about this was the credit enhancement, which was at the Takaful Reserve. Sitara Chemical Limited wanted 50 million rupees. So they did to, I think, expand it, I think to build it, one of its chemical factories, and obviously gave in cash. And Sitara had property, I believe, which it gave in kind. Sitara also contributed an amount of 50 million to create a Takaful Reserve, and this during the tenure of the Sukuk. So loss during the Sukuk tenure, the amount contributed to the Takaful Reserve will be paid on final settlement. So you created a reserve to as planned. So this is more compliant, I think, compared to having a clause which fixes the price. Yeah, clause which says we'll buy back at this fixed price. If you use the Takaful Reserve and you say if your performance or heavy losses, then you can go into the Takaful Reserve and take money out of it to pay back. In cases that everything goes as planned, yeah, then at the end of the period and at maturity, this reserve is distributed back, paid back to every partner. Right. Again, from the Sharka profits come, part of it go to the Sukuk holders, part go to the reserve. The Takaful buys insurance, Islamic insurance. For those who don't know, the Takaful is Islamic insurance. I believe Dr. Ahmad Assad did for it. Yeah. I think Dr. Ahmad did cover it. Okay. So the Takaful Reserve, a portion of profit share is contributed to the Takaful Reserve, which will be paid back to the holders at the time of final settlement. The tenor at maturity, you deem the Musharaka Sukuk cash goes there, and the Takaful Reserve is distributed evenly or according to the ratio between Sukuk holders and Sitara Chemical Limited. Right? Ijara Sukuk. Sukuk, don't be intimidated by this. This covers each and every aspect of it. Yeah. Cash. The company is issuing the Sukuk, this asset to the SPV, and the SPV using this money pays asset to the. Now, who owns the asset? The SPV, half of the investors. So investors are the assets. SPV is over, or is the agent overseeing it, like the SPV. Right. Then the origin leases back the asset, so it's sold asset, and then lease the asset for rental. Right. And at the end of so you have so rentals is how the investors make money. When you have a purchase and sale undertaking, and originator is also the servicing agent. Remember we discussed when it's Jara, right? Although the duty is of the investors who are the owners of the asset, but because there can be thousands of investors, what they do is they have an agreement with the originator that you have the asset with a servicing agent as a servicing agent, and we'll pay you for it. X amount will be paid to you for it. the WABDA Sukuk, the Water and Power Development Authority. The WABDA required funding to partially finance the Mangla Dam raising project. Is finance worth 8 billion rupees from the local market through issuance of Sukuk based on Ijara. Right? Then sale and leaseback of this involved sale and leaseback of 10 existing hydro generation turbines installed on the dam. Set up by the WABDA would issue Sukuk certificates worth 8 billion and use the proceeds to purchase the identified turbine. WABDA would then lease back the turbines from the SPV over 7 years against rentals equal to 6 months, SCIBOR plus 35 basis points. Enter into a purchase undertaking to purchase the X on maturity. So what happens? SPV issues Sukuk. Sukuk will give 8 billion, which goes to WABDA, right? Then on the payment, WABDA sells the SPV turbine. After turbines are leased back, and what makes this interesting? Adjusted Sukuks are obviously tradable in the market, right? This is what happens in inception, and this is what happens. Distribution obviously pays lease rentals to the SPV, which then pass on to the Sukuk holders. WABDA pays back the amount it had originally taken investors, or according to the sale agreement, which was sale and purchase undertaking. So buy back the turbines and principal to the Sukuk holders. This is the Dubai Sukuk, which was again 2006. The bank arranged the pre-qualified public offer Sukuk issue for Nakheel. Right. The world and one of UAE's largest property developers. Of a number of projects including Jebel Ali Village, Jumeirah Islands, Dubai Promenade, the Lost City, Jumeirah Park, Jumeirah Waterfront, and International City. So Sukuk was issued at all of these develop these projects. The structure was developed as a 3-year pre-QPO equivalent Ijara, wherein funds raised at Nakheel Holding 1, obliger, under a pre-identified asset was sold to Nakheel Development Limited, and offshore special purpose that was formulated as a free zone company at Jebel Ali Free Zone. Which were, and I know I spoke a little fast, but I'll explain what I said when it comes to the diagram. The assets were subsequently leased by SPV to Nakheel Holdings 2 for a period of 3 years. Now, these sales back structures are having on the fact that you're already entering into a sale and purchase agreement which locks in the price, so there's no actual risk. Another thing that was being which was a bit from industry was not from the industry, from some of the scholars, was that this is a sale and buyback. Sale and lease back is more like a sale buyback, which was in the previous time used as a riba, a way of get riba contract. What happened was, if I needed money, right, I would go have money, I would sell this asset at cash, right, and it was cash now, and immediately after that, I would buy back the asset, but at a deferred payment, right? So I buy the asset at 100, I get 100 immediately, and I buy back the asset at the same time after I've sold it, at 110 after 6 months. So the scholar, this is tantamount to riba. You're just using an asset as a box ticking exercise, right? So that was one of the criticisms for these sale agreement and this sale back, lease and buyback structures. So what that was, so this was 3.5 billion dollars, Ijara, 3 years, LIBOR plus 120 basis points, and this was launched in 2007 and 2010 and 11. It was redeemed. It was something very interesting, right? Holding companies issued the sukuk and sold the asset, and the other company bought the asset. Well, at least that holding company isn't buying it, so it's the sale buy. It's not a sale and buyback then, because buyback. So what it did was it was very smart in that way. But who are you trying to fool? Whatever. It was smart in the sense it said Nikhil holding one will be the seller, and yeah, and the other one will be the buyback. The other holding company is buying it, not the original. This does not mean this means it's not a lease and sale buyback, a lease back. But let's see what it was. So this is the SPV, right? SPV issues certificate, gets investment, gives the cash to Nikhil holding one, and gets the asset. Then this, which is owned by investors and overseen by the SPV, is leased Nikhil Holdings to another holding company of Nikhil, which leases asset and pays periodic rentals for it, and also gives a purchase undertaking that after a certain time we will purchase it at a certain price. Good. Sukuk Salam. We have 1 hour. We have or more. I mean, I can go on. I don't mind. Okay, so when we finish, inshallah, by the hour, we should be finished. Because I'm quicker if I do say so myself. I've been a bit far. We should be done with the hour. So anyway, Salam Sukuk. Right. Salam is you pay upfront 100% and for deferred delivery of an asset or commodity. Right. So again, issue Sukuk goes to the SPV. SPV pays upfront, your Salam contract. So sale of the deferred basis. In the sense you pay it and you will get assets on deferred basis. Then after a certain period you get delivery of assets. Right. I have a purchase undertaking that this will buy it. Either you enter into a parallel Salam, or if not, then the originator gives a purchase undertaking that you will will buy the assets from you or the party from at a fixed price. Which again, obviously, you've noticed by now I'm not a big fan of purchase and sale undertaking. It defeats the purpose of taking risks, the actual risk and reward. It just defeats the purpose of that. If you locked in your price, then you've defeated the purpose, right? But it happens more often than you might expect. In fact, yes, it is being recorded. It is. It should be. Yeah, it. Do you want to use this as evidence that I've said it? I've said that I'm a fan of this. Please don't use it as evidence. Please don't use evidence as although I stand by my words. I'm not saying I'm not going to stand by my words, but just don't start using it as much as I said this. So this is no worries. Okay, anyway, so we have a purchase undertaking and a sale undertaking. I'm not a big fan of those. Again. So usually, so the first ever Sukuk issued was by the CBB, the Ministry of Finance, and the Central Bank of Bahrain, and it was Salam Sukuk. It was, and still CBB or the Ministry of Finance, the Central Bank of Bahrain issues Salam Sukuks for short-term liquidity management. Okay. So Bahrain is the second largest producer of aluminum or third largest producer of aluminium as well. And what happens is it uses, and we've got ALBA here, aluminium Bahrain, and they do that for the Salam purposes. And what is, I'll tell you what happens. So this is usually 3 to 6, maximum 9 months, but 3 to 6 months tenor. Um, you enter Sukuk holders, the government of Bahrain or the Central Bank of Bahrain enters into agency agreement with the Sukuk holders who give them money. The Sukuk holders bank, by the way, here. So like that, these are short-term securities to manage liquidity, the short-term liquidity of Islamic banks. Right? So what the government does is issues the short-term securities based on wakala contract, agency contract. Has the money when it enters into a salam contract with Aluminium Bahrain, which is one of the largest producers of Bahrain, aluminum in the world, with upfront payment and deferred delivery. Right? After 3 months, Alba delivers the asset. Right? And the government Bahrain sells the asset to a party and gets cash, and then dispersed to the Sukuk holders. So what happens is you enter into an agency contract with the banks and take the money and enter into a salam contract with the aluminum producers for upfront payment and deferred delivery of asset. So after 2 months or 3 months, the asset is delivered to you. You take that, sell it in the market, and whatever you get, you pay back to your Sukuk or Islamic banks. Murabaha. Murabaha is markup. Sukuks are issued for the purpose of financing the purchase of goods, so the holders become owners of the underlying commodity. The goods are the entity requiring the commodity at a cost plus markup. So tradable and the transactions cannot be securitized because they represent monetary debt. Right? So Sukuks are not tradable because they represent debt and they're not their price is not stable. Is not fluctuating. Only ijara price fluctuate. These don't. So they're not tradable. However, usually they're used in a mixed portfolio. A mixed portfolio consisting of in contracts and transactions may be tradable certain conditions. Right? And receivables, again, this is the beauty of securitization. You can have part of that as debts receivable through Murabaha and 70% of real assets, and then you can make a portfolio and you can trade that portfolio. Right? Its own, you cannot trade it. Basically, you need commodities or raw material. What it does is it sets up an SPV. It issues a Sukuk, and you get your money. The SPV then buys the commodity raw material at cost, at spot, right? And then you get to the original. So you own the raw material. The SPV owns the raw material on behalf of the investors. Then he does is SPV sells it to the originator at cost plus markup with deferred payment or stage payment, staggered payment. That every 6 months you'll get X amount repayment. This is how it usually works. Simple structure actually. And now hybrid. A hybrid is not one structure. More than one structure. When you leverage off more than one structure, more than one thing. So you've got a hybrid structure, and mostly hybrid structure used. There's not just one single structure that can fulfill the demand or need of investor. So this guy is Astana Ijara Sukuk. So this is all these three structures. This was Ishara Chemical Industries. Again, we just started previously as well. So they're big on issuing Sukuk. Chemical Industries Limited Pakistan required $65 million rupees for construction of a power project. So they wanted to make a power plant. Hybrid model using Musharaka Astana Ijara model. It's a few. What do you call? The first was Musharaka agreement. The institutions which were the holders were Islamic financial institutions. They paid cash in tranches. Their contribution was cash, and cent was the contribution which was in kind by Sitara Chemical Limited. Entered into an Istasna contract with the manufacturer of the power plant, right? Entered into an Istasna, it says a manufacturing contract of a power plant. Entered into a manufacturing contract with a power plant producer, right? Once the debt given to the musharaka, right, that asset is leased. That asset leased by Sitara Chemical Limited, right? And part of the rental, again, like a diminishing musharaka, so for example, 90% of that asset is owned by investors. So that is leased to, again, exactly like in diminishing musharaka, that part is leased to the Sitara Chemical, and periodic Sitara Chemical also pays to back share of the investors, share in that project, right? Again, you enter in, right? One entity, the Sukuk holders pay by cash, the original pays in kind. Okay, that's number one. The musharaka partner that enters into an Istasna contract with the manufacturer of the power plant. Right? Once completed, then so both the FIs and Sitara Chemical own the power plant, 90-10, 9% by the investors and 10% by the company. 9% share the asset is leased by Sitara Chemical, right? So you 90%, and continuously also start buying back the. So one lease rentals, you get the coupon payments, right? And then you start buying the investors' share in the project as well. Now, during the manufacturing phase, how do you return? What do the investors get, right, during the manufacturing stage? So you enter into a forward lease agreement, Ijara agreement. That, for example, it's a 5-year lease period. So for 2 years, the construction takes place for 2 years. So total 5 years of the Sukuk, right? And also 5 years, right? After the completion of the asset, what you do is you have forward lease that during that 2 years of construction, you pay the what do you call them? The forward lease. So that's how the forward lease agreement, and that's how you cover that aspect of it. And it's allowed, by the way. Forward leases are allowed. So which is right for you? Which is right? I mean, it depends what we're looking at. What is the underlying asset? What is the tenant? Right? Is available if there's an underlying asset, or do you need to construct it? Obviously, if it's a construction, then you have to have an Istasna, right? Is a major factor in deciding the structure. It's best if you have a tangible asset that can be leased from day one. Obviously, if you have an asset, then use an Ijara, structure. Ijara structures, the Sukuks are also tradable, and also their prices can fluctuate according to market conditions. Because if the assets are intangible, but you have to ensure that it is tradable. So assets maybe you can some equities or whatnot, or securities, but you ensure that they're tradable if they're real assets. They represent underlying assets. For short-term Sukuks, Murabah Sukuks are popular in Malaysia, but not in the GCC. Istana and Salam are not tradable in the GCC. It should be avoided. Like I said, apart from the Shafis, all the others state that debt cannot be traded. You cannot that someone you can transfer debt, which is a hawala, but you cannot trade it in the market over like as a on a profit from it. You see, that's not allowed. So for the bonds usually share are so bonds are traded premium or less than premium. But Sukuks have to be if they represent debt, they have to be at par. Wants to buy anything at par, unless it's a transfer of debt. Musharaka Mudari due to the 2008 guidelines from IOFI, which purchase undertaking and all of that issue. So IOFI did counter that, and especially when it came to Musharaka and Mudarba. Right? It's obviously becoming common, especially because you have just one structure. It's very hard to find one single contract to deal with the requirements of the customers. I would suggest the hybrid models are ones which are more strong. So asset-backed and asset-based Sukuk. Asset-backed are which you give the investor recourse to the asset. So, for example, if it's a machine, right? So we've actually entered into a partnership and we own the underlying business. So the recourse to the business. It can be cash, it can be asset. Asset Sukuks are kind of different, which does give the recourse or ownership as such to the asset, to the underlying asset. This is usually ijara, when you have your sale and lease back. And when you lease back, you've locked in your property asset, because remember there's a purchase undertaking and a sale undertaking. So you actually enter into a sale undertaking that we will not sell the asset to anyone else except the originator. And the originator also gives a purchase undertaking that we will not buy the asset after 5 years at this specified price. So asset-backed are again when you have recourse to the asset, then you own the asset and you don't have an undertaking as such, so you can do whatever with the asset. But based are mostly where you don't have recourse to the asset. Qualok and products which are used a lot, especially in the GCC. Tawarruk is used a lot, but whatever else as well. GCC is not just unique to it. What is this is more of an organized sale. So this is, let's see, between two banks. Bank wants to borrow money. Bank B, or so suppose the borrower wants to borrow money. He comes to the bank and he wants money, right? So bank A does is it buys an asset for A, immediate delivery, and there is an immediate payment. You just pick up your phone and you call the asset. Mind you, the asset has not left the warehouse or wherever it's being stored. It's right there. This is just documentation which is going on. So the buys the asset and immediately sells it to the borrower. Yeah, and deferred payment basis. So what happens again? Approach bank A for a financing or loan or whatever. Bank A calls broker A, buys an asset, and immediately pays for it. Right? So now bank A owns the asset. Almost at the same time, the bank A sells the asset to me, but money from you after 6 months. Yeah. So that's the what the borrower does. Borrower immediately sells the asset to another broker, right, for a mid payment, right, and then all during the same documentations and everything and the phone call. So this is very nice. This is very synthetic. The asset does not leave the warehouse. Does not not anything to the economy of the country. The asset's there wherever it is in the warehouse. You're just doing documentation stuff, and that's it. All right. Fan of it. There's no real risk. There's no underlying real activity, real economic activity. This is just used as a box ticking exercise to get liquidity. Right? To go to the bank, I need money. I go to the bank. The bank buys an asset, sells it to me, a dirt payment basis, and immediately take that asset and sell it in the market at cash. And obviously, I won't physically go there. The bank has brokers sitting in the bank. So you just have to go to them and then just get it done. So yeah. So let's explain. Syndication, by the way, guys. So I believe the last one. So are you guys still with me? Yeah? Who's sleeping and at home? Because I can get a bit technical sometimes. And I have to. Okay, good. We do. So alhamdulillah. So syndicate one, and then we'll finish off. And then if there are questions, I can answer those questions. I'll answer those. Otherwise, if they're very technical, I'll say I'll get back to you. But inshallah, we'll get back. Yeah, my conference room. And now we're going on to syndication, right? Syndication. Now, this is a part of the IFQ, by the way. What we've covered till now, we've covered the IFQ. Okay. Now this is just. I wanted to add risk management to this as well, but that would get would probably take another 4 hours of another class. So I didn't add risk management to this. It covers certain cases on Sharia non-compliance risk. Remember, I discussed two cases with the bank and the other one. But I didn't go into a lot of details on risk management. Syndication involves a group of investors or financial institutions that put their resources together to provide finance to a customer. And this practice started, ago. So this wasn't started by banks. This was, prior to spreading finance. This was radio had syndicates, criminals had the syndicate. Businesses, they all pool resources together to get a higher outcome. For syndication, portfolio diversification, rather than just investing a lot of money or financing a really big project, you just get exposure to that project, but you don't get you get a smaller what do you call it, exposure to the risks associated with that project, right? Again, avoids excessive single name exposure, preserving commercial relationship with the customer. Fee income, and we'll discuss in the next slide that lead arrangers do get a part of the fee as well, so they charge a fee as well. Gives access to new markets and clients. Next motivation. So it gives access to new markets and clients. For example, if a Islamic bank wants to do business in Kazakhstan, it can find some leader in the market because it has no experience in the local market, but it can also put in some money, and rather than having exposure to everything, and you can a syndication. Syndications can obtain a larger facility. So, for example, then just going to one bank and saying, guys, I need 100 million, and the bank we can't afford 100 million. If you go to a syndicate, four banks can come together and put 25 million each, and the exposure of their end is also managed, and you get, as a client, get their facility. Maturities as well, there can be longer maturities and lower costs, because maybe you can negotiate a better deal when there's less risk involved to one single party. The syndication, the underwritten deal. Underwritten deal is the most widely available type of syndicate loans in Europe. So this is more done in Europe. Here, the lead agent or the underwriter guarantees and syndicates the entire loan. So the lead agent is someone who is organizing the whole syndication. So you put a lead arranger. He goes and finds other banks or potential investors for that project as well. In the under deal, if he find other investors, then he says that I will absorb the unsubscribed portion. For example, looking for 100 million, the lead says, okay, I'll give 25 million, and remaining 75 million I'll raise from through syndication from other partners. Now, I can only 50 million more. The 9 million he'll have to absorb, right? So if you say, okay, I'll absorb this and I'll pay 50 million, and I've only raised 50 million from other. You can sell to investors the unsubscribed part of the loan as well. It will be done later on as well. You know, club deal is a smaller amount, typically between 25 to 150 million. The unique feature is that this is equally distributed. So you need lead agent and other members of a club deal all share equal or nearly equal parts of the fees earned from the loan facility. Here, the lead agent, because he's taking such a risk, gets most of the fee when it comes to a certain deal. When a club deal, because everyone puts equal amounts in it, they all share the fee facility equal amounts as well, right? And last is syndication deal. This is mostly done in the US. The lead agent says that to find people, I'll try to partners, but I suppose it's a 100 million loan. I put 25 million. I'll try to find other partners for the 75 million. Find it, I won't do anything about it. Either we'll only take the 25 million or we, finish the deal. So unsubscribed portion of the loan will be filled by taking advantage of changes in the market agent. But the lead agent does not commit to guarantee the entire amount of the loan. If the loan continues to be undersubscribed, the borrower may be forced to accept a lower loan amount, or may answer to me entirely. He can say, okay, then if you can give only 5 million, then that's what I'll take. Or you can say that this deal can fall through. You don't have to go through the whole process. Slight background on syndication market trends. Was 2.5 trillion during the half of 2015 and 8% decrease compared to the first half of 2014, and the slow period for lending since the first half of 2013. Syndication at least has not days as compared to the past 3-4 years, but during the second quarter of 2000 we did see a 24% increase from the first quarter of 2014. So it did see, but it has picked up since 2015. It has picked up. There has been some move in the market when it comes to syndication and big projects. But yeah, it has seen better days, but it's picking up again. When it comes to Islam, Malaysia, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait are the 4 main markets for Islamic syndication out of overall market. Right? Project funding is an increasingly popular sector in Islamic syndication. So it's mostly for project and infrastructure funding or finance. It's used. The difference between syndication and Sukuk. Loan size syndication, it's mid-sized loan. You can go into the billions of dollars. In syndicate, it's mostly millions, 100 million, 200, 300 million dollars. More towards the billion side. Term, on average. Issuances depends really on the type of Sukuk. Can be less than 1 year when it comes to Salam, or 10+ years when it comes to a higher ticket Sukuk. For syndication, there's no rating required as such because it's between two parties. It's not a publicly public thing. Syndication is between 2 or 3 parties, so there's no rating required. When it comes to Sukuk issuance, obviously because you have to do your roadshow, you have to print your prospectus, you have to get your rating, sovereign rating as well. Right? So there is a rating when it comes to Sukuk. There's very limited marketing required when it comes to syndication. Because it's between two, three parties, right? Four, three parties. So there's no marketing required as such. So Sukuk issuances, obviously you go to different countries to have road shows and stuff like that to generate more uh, investors. As limited parties nego. So again, how long does it take to issue syndication? Well, not as long because you got it parties, who decide among themselves. You have your legal team who decides among themselves. So it shouldn't take more than 6 months or something. Hopefully, if everything goes well. For issuances, it's a different story because governments, you're dealing with your security exchanges. You're dealing with foreign governments if you're listing somewhere abroad. You're also dealing with a lot of different investors, right? So that transaction timing takes a lot longer when it comes to Sukuk. Tradability in syndication, there's no real tradability when it comes to syndication because no one really trades that. But issuances, yes, Sukuks are traded, not all, but some are. For example, negotiation process. Again, if there's some, not but if there's a if the bank or the boss's payment or something or is delayed, then reading process when it comes to syndication is easier because again you're dealing with less parties. When it comes to issues, regulatory implications in case of default, so maybe you have to go into liquidation or do whatever according to the regulation is because you've issued to the general public. The difference between syndication and Sukuk. Strong syndication. This is easier for you guys. I'm sure this is easier. Under AIFC between the institutions participating in a syndicated financing operation, one of the following funds. The institutions participate jointly in providing the funds and bearing any losses proportionately, whereas profit is agreed upon. Like again, simple Vishalka, you get 3-4 people or entities get together and invest in a project. Will obviously be the manager partner in the Musharaka will be the lead arranger. Wakala. In this case, the work to be done should be clearly defined along with the estimation of period of agency. Will become entitled to remuneration, whether profit actually materialized or not. It may be given a bonus as a lump sum amount or share of profits above a certain limit. Again, Musharaka or even an agency as a Wakala that's acting on behalf of other investors. The structure of a syndication. Society of banks and financial institutions, they give a funding pool. This is a Musharaka with the and then this is a Murabaha. Again, for Murabaha structure, Tawarruk structure, the investment agent seller, he buys, so he is the lead arranger, the investment agent or the lead arranger or whatever. He buys assets or what you want commodities at spot, pays spot, and sells it to the company running the money or the financing, sells it immediately for payment. So it sells it for a deferred payment. And this bond purchaser or the company needing financing, they sells it in the market for cash. This is how a commodity, again, simple structure we've discussed before, simple Tawarruk structure. Discussed just now. Some other structures. So class activity. If we were in a classroom, I would have told you to make why don't you guys for 5 minutes make an Ajara structure for me? Or hop onto the slide. How do you think an Ajara structure would look like? Just make for your own self. I mean, I can't see it. You guys are doing, but just try to think of it yourself as your own self. touch yourself. Okay, let's do it. Yeah. So from sorry. Perspective, okay, you have syndicate, right? A syndicate of banks and financial institutions. Again, this is a musharaka, right? Okay. Um, buy the asset. No, it's simple, Ijara. It's not very complicated. It's just the asset which the you know wants to buy. It can be an asset, a huge asset, or whatever. You own now, and then you lease it. You simply lease it to the lessee or the entity replacing the asset. It's a simple vanilla structure. We get it, but in the gist of it, this is just a simple vanilla structure. Instead of the asset, first you have to get into an istisna agreement with the what do you call it? With the developer, you know, and then enter into a purchase undertaking from the after the asset is completed. We will give to purchase this asset. And again, you can also enter into a forward lease agreement. For the 2 years the asset is being developed, you can enter into a forward lease agreement, and after you can sell off the asset to the borrower, depending on how you want to look at it. It can be. Oh, we are at the end of it. So this is a bit of it, and we have 15 minutes actually, right? This is just a vanilla structure of an istisna lease. Any questions? Exams. Um, so this, for example, I'll say we sent a mock at the end of this week, like a mock exam, so you'll get an idea of what it looks like. Yeah. And then inshallah, in a couple of weeks or 3 weeks, we'll give you weeks to prepare. I'll share this recording. Let me stop this recording now, and share this recording with you as well. All links have been shared.